Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Monday night on RCI TV. It is season finale night for the Monday Challenge Cup, and where better to see out the season at the home of Ferrari. It is the Temple of Speed. It is Monza for the 6th round of the season, and I have alongside me for the finale John Dalton and Ryan Mawson behind the cameras. John, let's not waste any time as we get towards the end of the practice session here. It is the home of Ferrari. It's one of their home Grand Prix. It is a track where we'd expect the new Ferrari Challenge Evo to deliver, and Joe McCauley's just gone top of the timing table in practice.
Yeah, good evening, Ryan and everybody. I say you can't say much fairer than that on timing. Just as you finish your sentence there, Joe McCauley puts in a stellar lap of 1:48.2 in practice. Tops the timing boards. Lamborghinis, as you can see down the left-hand side, looking super strong here tonight. So I think we're going to have an all-Italian shootout with the Porsches dotted in and around the grid tonight. So looking like Ferrari could be a dominant one. So you've got Wolf Matuszka down in P11. Not sure what he's been doing, whether he's been practicing his race pace or whether, he's been on his qualifying pace, but certainly one to watch. Wolf, no stranger to being in the top 10 and fighting for the front as well.
Definitely going to be exciting to watch, and well, let's not just focus on the Ferraris that are going to be out here today with Joe McCauley, Wolf Matuszka. We'll also have a look over towards our eyes of the championship standings. We'll get a look at those after qualifying is done, but just 2 points between our championship leaders Grantis Caracas and Benjamin Heilmann. 2 points separate it here today, and well, both of them are having their fair share of struggles here at Monza. Grantis Caracas is 11th at the moment, 8.5 tenths of a second off of what Joe McCauley's been able to do around here at Monza, and Benjamin Heilmann all the way down in 18th, half a second between the two of them on the timings table. So incredibly poor for the Porsches at the moment. In fact, not a single Porsche inside the top 10 in practice. This is Lamborghini and Ferrari's hunting ground here tonight, and they'll feel they deserve it after the Porsches have probably had the better hand of 4 or 5 tracks so far this season.
Yeah, certainly so, Ryan. We've seen the Porsches being, the dominant handling car this season of the tight and twisty tracks such as Hungaroring, the middle section of Spa. Again, they were particularly strong in, and obviously the Lamborghinis have been the kind of best all-rounder with that mix of handling and straight line speed, with the Ferraris being, pure straight line speed in this championship. Be interesting to see if the Porsche drivers start teaming up amongst themselves to maybe try and punch a hole in the air for one another to see if they can clamber their way up the grid and upset the Lamborghinis, or will we see the other way round where, you see the Lamborghinis starting to pair up and start slipstreaming each other to maybe try and get a better time to knock Joe McCauley off that top spot in quali.
Well, that top spot in quali is what Joe McCauley will be aiming for as we get towards the end of the practice session. It looks like he's going to finish top unless someone can beat him out, although practice is not the be-all and end-all. Qualifying matters much more, and then so does the race, as that's where most of the points will be won this evening. But there are points on offer for pole position overall, and that's going to be something that they'll be eyeing up for sure. And all the Lamborghinis filling out the rest of the top 10 as well. Some driver names at the top of the timings here, John, that we're not used to seeing up here because, they haven't got on with the Lamborghini so well this season perhaps. And now that we've come to a track where it can really stretch its legs that it has, got a few new names at the top, which is always nice to see. But we've moved over into qualifying, and it's time to find out who will take pole position for the final round of the Challenge Cup.
Going to be an interesting one. We see a lot of drivers already heading out of the pit lane in their masses, keen to get track position here, keen to maybe try and pull a gap on their rival to see, if you can get away and not help them along. We see Nico Kumpu here chasing after Benjamin Heilmann into the first chicane. Heilmann going very wide, in fact outbraking himself on cold brakes and tyres. Hopefully not damaged his tyres too badly, and we see a connection loss racing Lamborghini in the background there doing the same. But Nico Kumpu to the front of the field, maybe Heilmann playing the tactical game, knowing that Lamborghini is going to be faster in the straights, maybe going to try and get a little bit of a slipstream off him, see if he can tow himself between these two chicanes, tow himself up to the Ascari chicane and down to the Parabolica and across the start-finish line. So Not sure who my money's going to be on today, Ryan, but I'm thinking Joe McCauley maybe.
Yeah, I think Joe McCauley is probably going to be the favourite out here for qualifying. But I agree with you for the Porsches out here today, particularly Benjamin Harmon and Grantis Caracas. Trying to get in behind one of the Lamborghinis might not be a terrible idea. There's no point doing it with the Ferrari because it'll just disappear up the road and you'll never get a slipstream off of it. They have a lot more chance of getting a bit of a suck off of the Lamborghinis. And would not be surprised if Benjamin Harmon was intentionally going a bit wide, or going a bit deep rather, into the first chicane just to get himself behind. Usually wants to be out in front and at the lead of the pack, but that's usually because he doesn't want anyone slipstreaming him or in front of him. But here we go then, the very first lap for the final qualifying session of the season. And it's going to be Nico Kumpu that starts us off here, crosses the line, and will make his way down towards turn 1. We could watch here, and just some weaving side to side there. Maybe the tyres not exactly up to pressure or up to temperature like he would want them. So he's going to come down into the first braking zone here. Maybe lost a tiny bit of time weaving the car there, but not too much. He'll just be focusing on getting a banker lap in. So he goes into the Variante Primera chicane. I was going to say Alta for a moment. We're not at Imola. We were there a few weeks ago. And then makes his way through the second corner. Then you're coming up to the Seconda Variante chicane. And this is one of the more tricky corners on the circuit. Need to get the car stopped and turn in nice and sharply. Run over the curb, go nice and wide, but avoid the gravel trap on the left-hand side of the circuit. Then you come up to the first of the two Lesmos, get the car nice and turned in wide on the exit as you prepare for a short run down towards the second Lesmo. Get the car turned in nice and wide on the exit again, and then down the back straight. You will go 2 back straights on the Monza circuit. Slight kink in this one that you'll carry completely flat no matter what car you're in, and then you'll eye up the braking zone on the right-hand side of the circuit. Hit your brakes and then turn in to Ascari, ride as much of the curb as you can on the inside. Just be careful not to hit the anti-cuts too hard or the car will go into the barrier. Exit nice and wide, but don't void your track limits. And then along the second back straight now, as we come up to the final corner, which I for the life of me, I can't remember what they've renamed this one to now, but through the final corner we go then. Get the car turned in nice and early on the power, carry the car as wide as you can, maximise the straight line speed, and then up towards the start-finish line. Nico Kumpu will set down the very first lap, and it is a 1:49.0, and that is almost 9/10 clear of what Benjamin Harmon's managed to do on his first banker lap.
Yeah, not looking so good for the Porsches here. I say Adam De Beele there going quicker than Nico Kumpu by 0.4. So definitely these guys getting in some very solid banker laps at the beginning. Wolf Matuszka there up into P4 so far in the Ferrari. Obviously Joe McCauley yet to cross the line. However, a lot of traffic on track at the moment. Guys bunching a little bit together in places, maybe trying to get that slipstream off each other. But like you say, the Ferrari isn't going to be one of those cars you want to try and get the suck off. Last corner here, I believe, Ryan, was the Parabolica last time I looked. Not sure if they have renamed it, but it's news to me.
I'm pretty sure they have renamed it now. It was Parabolica. I'll see if I can dig it out whilst I go through my notes.
Frantically start Googling to see if we can find out what the last corner has been renamed to. But Joe McCauley there going to the top of the board with a 1:48.4. Absolutely smashing through the Lamborghinis and the Porsches. Wolf Matuszka there ticking down in P6.8 away from Joe McCauley. So still some potential from Wolf there to get a lap in as we flick here to Nicholas Nordqvist in the bright lime green Lamborghini. Currently sits down in P8 coming through the Ascari here. Very easy corner to upset the car coming through, take too much curb at any given point, and it can spell disaster, especially in the mid-engine rear-wheel drive cars. As we come down towards the corner with the mysterious name that we're not too sure on yet.
Alboreto.
Alboreto.
Curva Alboreto is what it's officially been renamed to.
And any idea why it was renamed, Ryan?
It was renamed in honour of the Italian Formula One legend Michele Alboreto. I totally didn't just read that off Wikipedia.
Totally not off Wikipedia. As
Totally not off Wikipedia. But I was correct that they renamed it though, because I got used to calling it Parabolica, and then I remembered, wait, no, they've renamed it. So,
yeah, my circuit map I pulled out is still Parabolica, so
I'll have to remember that for the SRO guides later in the year that I don't call it Parabolica.
Just make a big poster note on your table right now, just so you don't forget.
Oh dear. Well, into the qualifying session we go, and well, halfway down pretty much, and it is Joe McCauley at the top, 1:48.400. It's a very good lap time from Joe McCauley, 0.2 of a second clear of Dubiel at this point, and looking towards the free practice times that they managed to achieve. That's about 1/10 of a second off of what Joe McCauley managed in practice, so he can go a bit quicker than what we've just seen. He has just improved his time, so not quite to where he was in practice, but still about 0.5 off. So Joe McCauley still has a bit more pace left in that car, 0.3 clear at the moment from second place, and well, you'll have to wonder, John, if he can do this in qualifying, can he keep it up in the race? Because it's very, very different to do this on a full tank of fuel.
Yeah, Ferrari does become a big handful on that full fuel load. See, brakes not too good on it, cornering we've seen in the past, not too good on it either. So with that combination, whether Joe McCauley can smash out these lap times within the race trim will be very interesting to see. We might see a bit of a cork in the bottle effect with Ferrari like we've seen at previous circuits, where Ferrari backs them up in the corners, and then all of a sudden, you know, the Ferrari fires itself down the straight. And speaking of firing themselves down the straight, Nico Kumpu there sets in a 1:48.2 and dives back to the pit lane to the top of the board, so not too far off Joe McCauley. Obviously Joe McCauley with the straight line speed, so even if he does take P2 in qualifying, chances are he is probably going to end up in P1 by the time we get down to
he's
turn
up
1.
by 0.3 of a second, by the way, coming out of Ascari. So, in fact, he has lost a bit of time though coming out of Ascari. He was 3.5 up, now only about 1/10 of a second up. Joe McCauley is still up on his time, and he should retake the provisional pole as it stands. Although coming into Alboreto, he has lost more time. I think he's got a decent exit though. He should improve on his lap time coming up towards the timing line now. Does, and it's 8 thousandths short as it stands for Joe McCauley to get that overall pole position for the season. But Wolf Matuszka all the way down in 12th. He's not having the same kind of performance that we're seeing here from Joe McCauley, and that very much reflects how it looked in practice, John.
Yeah, certainly so. We did see Wolf quite far down the board, but obviously practice times aren't the one you need to be judging. People could be on, you know, qualifying trim already. People could be in their race trim, you know, getting used to how the car's going to be feeling over a stint rather than, you know, how it's going to be feeling over one lap. The ATC is the game of consistency, so the more consistent you can be over a stint, the higher you seem to be climbing up. As we see here, Martin Lawrence pulling into the pit lane. A little bit of a alternate livery on that Porsche this week, not the traditional connection loss racing colours that we're familiar with seeing. And speaking of Porsche, here is Christian Lindgren at the back end of the field, down in P23, 2.1 seconds off that top time set by Nico Kumpu. So the Porsches are really struggling here as he rounds out of the final turn, heading towards the start-finish straight. Very easy to run wide at the formerly named Parabolica corner as Christian Lindgren jumps up one position to P22, slightly ahead of Martin Lawrence that we saw pulling into the pits, as Joe McCauley comes down towards the final turn again. I'm not sure if he's up on his time. I do not have my broadcasting up, Ryan.
No, he's down by about 3.5 of a second at the moment, so I think this may be a warm-up lap for Joe McCauley just to go again. 5 minutes remaining of the session, so assuming he's still carrying some extra fuel, but no, he's actually going to come straight back into the pit lane, so you would assume he's going to come in, get some fresh tyres on, and go back out, and that'll be his final run, should we say, in qualifying. Will Stevenson, though, doing very good at the moment. He's up by 0.8 of a second on his personal best right now. He's going into Lesmo 1. We're looking at Tom Bryant, who's also racing for Connection Lost Racing this season in the 42. Had a great performance out at Hungaroring, comes across the line now, and is still down in 21st place. So no improvement for Tom Bryant there, but Will Stevenson at the moment, 7/10 of a second up. He's currently in 6th place. This 7/10 of a second would take him, well, not just onto provisional pole, it would take him almost half a second clear on provisional pole. So Will Stevenson's found some incredible time here. He's coming out of Ascari now and making his way around the second back straight up towards Curva Alboreto. We're looking at Andy Boardman now, who's in 10th place. He's half a second up on his lap time. So he's going to come across the line and improve up in towards the top 5 by the looks of it. Yes, he'll go 4th, a 10th and a half off. But here's Will Stevenson up by almost a second coming out of the final corner, up towards the timing line. This is going to beat provisional pole by a mile for Will Stevenson, but it's not valid.
Possibly how he found all that time then, Ryan. Maybe running very, very wide at a few corners, or maybe even cutting a chicane. 0.7, 0.8 is quite a large margin to gain, especially when you may be already on the limit of what you can do in that car. As I have noticed, Adam DeBale has taken provisional pole in the 840. As we watch here, Wolf wrestling that Ferrari around the final turn. Doesn't look too planted. It's a bit squirrely under power. Obviously a lot of power in that unit as Wolf crosses the line. Jumps himself up into P8, nearly half a second off the pole position, and 0.4 pretty much off Joe McCauley. So still a lot of time to gain for Wolf. Expected him to climb maybe a few more positions, but again, Brian, even down in P8 in the Ferrari, could we be seeing Wolf fire himself up to the front of the grid just by the time he gets to turn 1?
I was gonna say, do not underestimate the straight line speed of that Ferrari off the start. We saw Joe McCauley at Hungaroring gain about 6 or 7 places before turn 1. It is quite a long run down towards the first corner here, and you do have to be quite careful of the braking zone. It makes me think, though, if Joe McCauley can get his car onto the front row of the grid, he won't even need pole position to be ahead of whoever he starts alongside, because he's going to be well clear of them by the time he hits the braking zone for turn 1. So Joe McCauley's efforts, they're going to be purely focused on that front row of the grid. He's just started another flying lap. Here's Will Stevenson again coming through Curva Alboreto. He is up on his lap time again, only by about 0.2 of a second. Oh, maybe up to a quarter of a second now. Coming out of the final corner, up towards the timing line he will go, and Will Stevenson will move up into 6th place, just about under 0.2 of a second off of that provisional pole by Dubiel. The Lamborghini's doing very, very well here, but it's not over yet. 1:25 to go.
Yeah, certainly. So still a little while to go yet. Still got drivers, up and down the grid looking to improve. Nico Kumbu just watching it out of the window, rounding past the final turn in the 256 Lamborghini, crosses the line, but no improvement, unfortunately, for Nico Kumbu. As here we watch Dvorak keeping forward to Brantas Caracas in the 119. Again, a slight livery change for Brantas this week. Not the same livery he was running last week, but getting the toe off the Lamborghini down the start-finish straight. Maybe close enough. There we go, jumps up into P12. So highest place Porsche by the looks of it, and Dvorak battling down to P13. Says, nope, I will have that P12 back off you. So Caracas looking to go again, possibly nearly running up the back of that Lamborghini there. Super close into turn 1, and Caracas has abandoned that final attempt. As Hagstrom Vigashi here in P10 for the normally under the Sim Brothers nearly on pace banner for the Swede as he rounds the last turn in the 81 Lamborghini, heading towards the line. Currently remains in P10, jumps himself up into P4. Absolutely stellar lap there from Hagstrom Vigashi. Really not far off the back of Joe McCauley's time there, and he's got time to do another one. So possibly if he's found the time somewhere, he might be able to find that a little bit more. And Hagstrom Vigashi here could be the curveball at the front of the field, as Adam DeBille, provisional pole sitter. The timer hits 0, so any cars that now pass the line will not be able to set another lap. So this is Adam DeBille's last stab at an attempt of a quick time. Takes a very short line out of the final turn there, trying to shorten the run to the line as much as he can, and I don't believe he improves. So provisional pole currently sits at a 1:48.2. Still got a few drivers on valid laps at the moment, so still a little bit of time to maybe be gained from some of these.
Kumpu's off on their time by about 0.2 of a second coming out of Alboreto. This is going to be a new provisional pole, I feel. Kumpu comes across the line, and yes, it is. New provisional pole on Kumpu's very last lap, John. A 1:48.0, not quite cracking the 1:47 mark, but Joe McCauley is still running, and there could still be one last change in the tail here for qualifying. He's up on his lap time. He was up by about a tenth of a second. I think he's found a bit more time coming out of Ascari now. He's up by a quarter of a second. That would be enough to take him onto pole position. Vigaskew, as you said, is also running around. He's slightly up on his lap time, but nowhere near enough to be able to put his car on pole position. Joe McCauley coming through the final corner. He's found more time. This is going to be it. It might be by 2/10 as well. Joe McCauley up towards the line. It's a 1:47.895, and right at the death, Joe McCauley delivers to put the Ferrari on pole for the season finale.
Absolutely stellar lap. The Ferrari boys are going to be very happy with that, obviously, on their home circuit. It's a shame we couldn't see Wolf Machuska pull a very similar timeout, but again, I wouldn't be not looking at that Ferrari down in P11. Obviously, long run to turn one. Anything can happen here, Ryan.
Anything can definitely happen here, John. And, well, whilst we wait for the grid to be formed, let's have a look at how the championship standings line up coming into this race. We haven't really talked about them too much, but the championship contenders, they have 2 points between them. It's Grantis Caracas on 196 and Benjamin Harmon on 194. Benjamin Harmon needs to outscore Caracas by 3 points here tonight, essentially, to pretty much guarantee the championship. But it's far from over, because Klaus Nyring is also sort of in the mix as well. If he can get far enough up the field to, get that points overhaul over on the top two, he can definitely shake things up. Jarzabowski and Dubiel are tied on 158 each, and just a point behind them is Ole Pitchik. So the Lamborghinis all very, very close together in the top three. Then it's Felipe Moreira with 145. Nico Kumpu has 138. He's just 2 points ahead of Andy Boardman in the 69 Lamborghini. And then De Kaiser with 111 points rounds out the top 10. It's 5 Porsches and 5 Lamborghinis in the top 10. Then we go on to the second page, and it's tied on points for 11th between Hagstrom, Vigaskew, and Polyakov. Then it's Nicholas Nordquist and Martin Lawrence on 107, and then 93 for Lawrence and 93 for Lindgren apiece. So plenty of drivers tied on points so far coming into the final round. Ostrich on 80 points, then Jake Boswell 76, Dvorak 70, William Stevenson on 68, and then Christopher Verstreppen on 55. Matthew Kingston Lee is also on 55, tied for 20th place. Then the first of the Ferraris, it's Joe McCauley on 48 points. Tom Bryant just a point behind Joe with 47. Then we've got Wilfred Beale on 44 points. Wolf Matuszka, the other Ferrari, with 40. Boris Durney with 34. Then 25 points for Benjamin Schumann. Bosselet and Romano tied on 15 points. And Lucas Rommel rounds out the top 30 on 13 points. Jordan Daly also has 13 points, and he finds himself down in 31st, but tied for 30th. Victor Nordquist, has 0 points. Same for Jack Harvey and Matthias Kajszek so far this season. Bart Matcher, Jaroslav Roth, Stay Hughes, Peter Henneberg, Atabek Ertan, Luke Stokes, and whoever else it is on the final page, Dolezal, Alexander Van Merveld, and Inestroza are all signed out for the rest of the season. So that is how it stands ahead of tonight's race, John. So I have 2 questions for you, because it is the season finale, so we've got to go a bit more, a bit more focused, should we say, on the 2 important topics at hand. The first question is, who's going to win tonight? The second question is, who's going to be the championship winner?
2 super hard questions there, Ryan. Winner tonight? I want Joe McCauley to win, just so we can say that a Ferrari has won in the Challenge Cup. But, how much of a death machine that can be over the course of a race. My strong money is probably going to be on a Lamborghini. Nico Kumpu here, looking super quick in qualifying. And obviously Adam DeBille has been looking super quick all season. As for the championship, it's very close between the Porsche boys at the moment, but Porsche not being, too far up the field at this race, it could be very tricky for them unless, turn one at Monza, notoriously tricky to get right. If these guys aren't respecting each other at this final stage, then could see a little bit of argy-bargy, a little bit of, bodywork rubbing, a few people shuffled out of position. And this could bring the Porsche boys into the later half of the race. So definitely all eyes at turn one is going to be where this race is won or lost, I feel, Ryan.
Definitely agree with that. When it comes to race winner here tonight, I kind of agree. I want Joe McCauley to win just because I want to see the Ferrari come out on top. They've had a horrible season, and you kind of feel that they've earned the right to try and contest for a win here at Monza. It's going to be very, very difficult though. If I had to put money on anyone that wasn't Joe McCauley, probably Nico Kumpu, if I had to be honest. But Hagstrom Vigerscu is another good contender as well. Hasn't had the best season, but he's right up there at the end. And, that's what matters, is being up there to try and win. When it comes down to the championship, though, Caracas has got a very good qualifying position over Benjamin Heilmann, 5 places between the two of them. So Benjamin Heilmann's got some work to do, but you know what? I have faith in the German. I have faith in Heilmann, and I think, despite that he said that the drop round always screws him over, he'd actually be worse off at the moment in the championship without the drop round. So in a way, it's almost come to save him in some respects. But I'm pretty sure he's going to give it full send here tonight, and we can't ask for anything less, can we?
Yeah, certainly so. These drivers have been given it 100% all season. We've seen some super great fights, as we see here, the Lamborghini, the 47, and the Racing Club International sponsored car, as cars stream off the grid 2x2 to filter down into single file. Opening lap here is probably going to be very crucial, getting as much heat through those tyres as you can get. So the temperatures here today, very cool, 7 p.m. start time for this race, 21 air and 21 track with not a lot of wind. So I believe there's going to be plenty of brake dragging up and down the field, trying to get as much heat into those discs, pads, rims, and filtering through to the Pirellis as you can. So lots of weaving, lots of braking, sharp accelerations, maybe even a little bit of wheel spin to try and get that extra bit of heat into the rears. But we're going to see a couple of laps, if anything, to get these tyres fully up to temperature as we stream all the way down to the second chicane. Again, a very good passing place if you can get a good run out of turn one on your opponent. A great place to dive on the brakes. If you can get the move done before the first apex, you're normally laughing for the second apex. And Joe McCauley streams very slowly through the second chicane. Can't wait to see these guys go door to door down here, especially with the train of Lamborghinis behind Joe McCauley. I don't think anyone is going to get near to him until they get to this corner here, which is going to be the first of the 2 Lesmos. Obviously, Ferrari, not a particularly great car in the corners, especially when you laden it up with fuel, makes it a very big animal to wrestle around with the very basic downforce package that this car does have. Any bets in the chat, so I'm curious to know what you guys are thinking at home, who you think your money will be on tonight. If you agree with me and Ryan, let us know. T1 lap 1 will be hell, I can guarantee that. Hopefully these guys respect each other. Obviously an hour's race ahead of them, so you don't want to be putting yourself out of position too early on. But again, we've seen the early pit stop here, Ryan, not work as well as it has done in the GT3 fields, where you get that clean air, you drill some laps in. Seems to be very hard to get right in the Challenge Cup.
Yeah, definitely is difficult, but anything can happen, and as we prepare for the final round of the season, we've got Joe Gleason saying, any bets, what will happen? T1 lap 1 will be like 10-car contact, going for 7-3. Joe, we don't need this now. We don't need this now at the final round of the season. But you know what? It's lovely weather out here, isn't it? at Monza for the season finale. A lovely evening, sun setting, and it could not be better poised for the final round of the season. So here we go then, the cars lining up 2 by 2. We have a Ferrari on pole, Nico Kumpu in the Lamborghini alongside. The first of the Porsches all the way down in 13th place, and it's our championship leader, Grantas Caracas, who's qualified down there in 13th over Benjamin Harman, who's 2 points behind him, qualifying in 18th place. Will Joe McCauley be about 7 car lengths in front of Kumpu by the time he reaches the braking zone of turn 1? Well, we're about to find out. The cars slowly creep up towards the line. We eagerly await to see what will happen. The final round of the season, plenty on the line for all the drivers out here tonight.
Green flag to emerge here. Very long run down the green drops, and here it goes as we see Joe McCauley absolutely mash the throttle, trying to get a bigger gap as he can to Nico Kumpu behind, who blocks Adam Dubil as they run down to turn 1. Nico Kumpu looking very safe. Andy Boardman there 3 wide with Nicholas Nordquist to his right, and I'm not quite sure as Nicholas Nordquist fires himself off to driver's right and straight through the chicane. A few drivers there avoiding action. I believe Ola Pitchik there cutting the chicane as Nicholas Nordquist waits on the apron for all the drivers to stream past. But Joe McCauley has absolutely stretched his legs at the front of the field, and the Ferrari absolutely disappeared from everybody's turn 1 antics. And we did call it, Ryan. We did say there would be a lot of turn 1 antics, and I don't think it's over yet, heading down into turn 2.
It looks like they've got away mostly cleanly through the first chicane at least. No major contacts by the looks of it. It was just the Lamborghini of Nicholas Nordquist that kind of flew across the track, but fortunately flew across the track before anyone else could get to him. Joe McCauley 1.7 seconds up the road from Nico Kumpu right now as we get onto the first of the 2 back straights here, and plenty of fighting going on. Benjamin Harman, who qualified in 18th place, he's up to 14th right now, so he's had a very good start. And I think the more important thing for Benjamin Harman is that he's in front of Grantas Caracas. He's managed to jump ahead of his championship rival on the very first lap, and we've got one of the Forza Italia cars off the track there as well, coming out of Ascari, and look at the power of Wolf Petrushka's Ferrari coming out of Ascari. That Lamborghini is not slow in a straight line, but the Ferrari is just so much faster.
Dvorak there being on the receiving end of the Ferrari's pure speed, and it's only going to disappear as we head down the start-finish straight. But switching back to the Caracas and Harman battle, it does seem that Grantas Caracas has jumped ahead of Benjamin Harman again, so maybe Harman getting caught up in that Ascari incident. Obviously people checking up, Caracas saw a chance and decided to seize it with both hands, but now it looks like Harman is coming under fire from one of the Lamborghinis behind, which has the outside line. Harman's going to try and outbrake him up the inside to gain himself that jump ahead into turn 1 as they bang doors there. Harman on the outside, Lamborghini taking a very tight, cautious line, and Harman able to use the drive of the Porsche to get himself off turn 1 and give himself that good run down to turn 2. As we see here, Ola Pitchik and I believe Hagstrom Vigashu dicing for what is essentially P4 into the second chicane. Ola Pitchik getting ahead as he goes through the chicane, looking back. Adam Dubil there, who we saw nearly spinning in Ascari, is way out of the order to where we normally see him. Looking back from the car of Ola Pitchik here at the back, the front end, sorry, of Hagstrom Vigashu through Lesmo 1, through Lesmo 2. So not looking close enough to gain any advantage off that slipstream to make a move into Ascari. Long drag down essentially the back straight, to say, Ryan, as we flick back here to Nicolas Bossolet in the kind of Porsche train we've got going on right at the back of the field here, from P15 all the way down to P20 of Martin Lawrence. We've got a nice stream of Porsches here. You'd almost think it's a Porsche Cup car only race down this end of the field, Ryan.
We did have this earlier in the season, but with the Lamborghinis, didn't we? They were the ones filling out the mid-pack, and roles seem to have switched as we come to Monza, and Bossolet going very wide coming out of Ascari. Got to be careful not to pick up a track limit violation, and here comes Christopher Verstappen. Going to have a look on the inside. Is he going to brake late into Alboreto? He is going to brake late, and he's going to be on the inside of Nicolas Bossolet, and he's going to get that move done. Very nice from Christopher Verstappen. Gets the move done, and Bossolet demoted 1 place. Now here is Grantas Caracas. He's the lead Porsche in the race, and he's the championship leader as well, down in 10th place, slipstreaming the likes of Romano in the Lamborghini, but just not able to really make any inroads on the straights. Has to wait for the braking zone where the Porsche can just go a bit deeper into the corner to try and get anything on him. But the good news for Caracas, at least, is that Heilmann behind is having to deal with Kaishek at the moment, and Kaishek's got between the likes of Heilmann and Caracas, so more work to do for the 796 at this stage in the race.
These Porsche guys, I would say, if they want to play it smart, possibly work with these Lamborghinis ahead of them. They know that they've got them on the brakes and maybe through a few of the corners, but obviously Monza being predominantly straight lines between all of the corners, you probably want to start trying to maybe pair up with a Lamborghini like we're seeing here. We've got, you know, Dvorak and Nyring paired together. We've got Caracas and Romano paired together. We've got obviously the Benjamin Heilmann car paired up with the 427. So again, it's almost becoming like NASCAR here, where the Lamborghinis are going to be providing a tow for the Porsches. So provided the Lambo ahead of you isn't slowing you down massively, it's probably going to be a favoured strat just to work with them and try not to pass them. Unlike we've seen at previous circuits where it's been, you know, like roles reversed, like you say, Brian, where the Lambos have been the ones, you know, trying to tow onto the back of the Porsches through the corners, but not striking any luck on that.
Benjamin Heilmann were on board on the splitter cam here for his Porsche coming into Alboreto. You can just see Caracas up in front. I think Caracas has got past Romano. He has indeed. So Caracas is up into 9th place overall. Romano will be now slipstreaming the Porsche, and we'll have to wait and see if the Lamborghini gets back past the Porsche. Meanwhile, Benjamin Heilmann just sitting there in 12th place. And here is Hagstrom Vigouroux coming, going to be on the outside of turn 1, and it's the inside of turn 2, and makes his way past Ole Pitchik. So Hagstrom Vigouroux up into 4th place there, the 81, and he'll now see if he can get his head down and try and catch up to Andy Boardman further up the road in 3rd place. Meanwhile, between the leaders, by the way, Joe McCauley had a 2-second advantage. It's now 1.3 seconds. But I think that advantage is mostly just switching between 1.3 to 2 seconds, depending on which part of the track the cars are. Because when it comes to the long straights, of course, the Ferrari has the advantage, but through some of the twisty corners, the Lamborghini has that edge over the Ferrari. So looking back at Ostrich at the moment in the 444, he's in 8th place right now and chasing down Jake Boswell, who did have the fastest lap of the race, but that's now been inherited by Nico Kumpu. Jake Boswell up into 7th and doing very, very well at the moment. Wolf Matuszka, though, one of the drivers of the race to start, started in 10th place, I believe it was, and is up into 6th already, 1 second behind Ollie Pitchik and 1 second in front of Jake Boswell, so finding himself in a tiny bit of a bubble right now. We haven't really mentioned it too much, but there have been some drivers that have done their pit stops. Dubiel, Stevenson, Verstappen, Kingston Lee, Bryant, Daly and Nordquist are all the drivers that have got their mandatory pit stop done and dusted early on, so they're mostly in clear air. We'll have to see what they can make of it coming later into the race, and I'm being told by our broadcasting producer that the fastest lap of the race by Nico Kumpu is about 0.3 faster than what Joe McCauley has been able to do in that Ferrari. But I suppose the problem is, John, being faster than the Ferrari over the course of a lap by 0.3 is good, but you need to be faster on the straights or, well, be close enough in the braking zone for it to actually make a difference.
Yeah, certainly so, Ryan. It's a very tricky car to pass, as we've seen at previous rounds of the Challenge Cup. We see the Ferrari queuing cars up behind it through the corners. As soon as you get to a little bit of straightaway, Ferrari stretches its legs and it just pulls away. So unless you're very, very close coming out any of these corners and you're able to, use the slipstream to try and tow yourself along behind it, it's going to be a very, very tricky car to pass. But we have seen in Monday Challenge, obviously the traffic can play a big part as well. As looking at the circuit map on your right hand side, you see the lead car there just exiting Ascari, and the next car ahead is just crossing the start finish line of Nicholas Nordquist. So could be a little bit of a curveball once we start cycling through pit stops, maybe start seeing a little bit of traffic emerging in front of these guys. And as we look down here at the 47, chasing down the back of Romano. Romano, a driver we've seen typically in the top 10, floating about, very strong showing in the Lamborghini, seems to have really got to grips with this car as we go too wide into the final corner. Romano on the inside, outside of the parabolica, is normally very tricky to pass around, not a lot of grip out there, as all the grip tends to be on the inside. As we see there, the 47 really struggling to make it work and gives up the fight, dives into the pit lane to try and maybe work himself into some cleaner air, Ryan.
I definitely like that move, but I like that move assuming that you know you're going to come out into clear air, and I don't think that's a guarantee at the moment for Kaishek as he comes up to make his way towards his pit box. We'll have to see. We're on board with Martin Lawrence here, and that was Tom Bryant getting out of shape, coming out of Ascari. But here's the problem for the Porsche. Even with that poor exit, the straight line speed that the Lamborghini has is so good that it's going to be very difficult for them to overtake. And Martin Lawrence here probably just a bit frustrated at the moment, having to follow the likes of Tom Bryant just the way they are at the moment. Although Tom Bryant not doing a bad job indeed here, down in 22nd place, but he's got that mandatory pit stop done early. So if you can just keep like this, keep in clear air, and as long as Martin Lawrence doesn't hurt him too much, you know, by putting any pressure on or trying to force a move from behind, Tom Bryant could be on to gain a couple of places here in clean air.
Yeah, definitely. We've seen the clean air strap pulled many a time before in the Monday Challenge Cup, but it never seems to work, and we've never quite put our finger on why. Whether or not you end up in these silly battles with people that, you know, you normally wouldn't be in, you know, like Tom Bryant and Martin Lawrence on the same track. You normally expect Lawrence to be, you know, miles ahead here, as we see Wilfred Baij go for a move up the inside of the Ascari onto Christian Lindgren there, ahead in the black and green Porsche. Not making it work though, probably backing out of it, maybe thought better of it. Notoriously hard place to pass into the Ascari as you hit the weight transfer. It doesn't become an easy corner to make if you end up on the wrong side of the racing line. Christian Lindgren here covering the inside into the last turn. Saw last time the 427 Lamborghini trying to make it around the outside, but certainly didn't work. And Wilfred Baij there wants to start tucking in behind Lindgren to try and give himself the best run he can up the main straight as we ride on board here with the 64 towards turn one. We're going to see which way he goes. He chooses the outside line, Lindgren chooses the inside. The inside is normally favourable into turn one here, getting very close indeed on the brakes, side by side. Obviously outside becomes inside on that turn, but Wilfred Baij not being able to make it stick through the first part of that chicane, Ryan.
No, not quite able to make it stick. And that's going to be the difficult thing, isn't it? Getting some of these moves done. And it's one of the difficulties you have when you're racing against someone in the same car as you, is that neither of you are particularly quicker at any one point of the track, because both your cars are identical. It's what makes Spec Series racing very difficult and very competitive at the same time. Looking back here at Matthew Kingston Lee, and ooh, that's Verstappen going deep into the first chicane. That's going to give the 555 the chance to go and get past them. And look at the straight line speed that the Lamborghini has. Yes, Verstappen didn't get a great exit from the first corner, but either way, the straight line speed of that Lamborghini on full display as he makes his way through and up into 20th. And now Verstappen finds himself in the middle of a Lamborghini sandwich, and he's in the situation that Martin Lawrence has found himself with Tom Bryant.
Yeah, always very hard, like we said, for these Porsches to follow the Lamborghinis. As you see through the corners there, the Porsche really does have the edge through Lesmo 1, and we'll probably see the same again going into Lesmo 2. But as soon as you drive the Lamborghini off the corner, as we flick here to Kingston Lee's split cam, we see the Porsche almost rear-ending the camera there, getting it knocked out of the way. But we see here the Lamborghini is just absolutely pulling away down through Ascari. But looking next door to the stewards, they appear to have been a bit busy on the first opening laps, Ryan. Reading down the list here, we have no penalties, it seems. Just a lot of racing incidents and minor contacts and hard racing, apparently.
Lap 1, turn 1, racing incident. Lap 1, turn 1, racing incident. Lap 1, turn 1, racing incident. Lap 2, turn 3, racing incident. Lap 2, turn 3, racing incident. Lap 2, turn 11, racing incident. You get the point. It is a lot of racing incidents, and it's exactly what we like to see, isn't it, John? It's just good hard racing between drivers and no penalties coming out, because there hasn't really been anything that the stewards have seen that needs to be penalised. And, well, long may it continue. We had a brilliant start here, didn't we? on the very first lap. One of the cleanest Monza T1s I think I've seen in a while. It was only Nicholas Nordquist's car going across the track that was a bit out of shape, but besides all of that, everything good. And here is Jordan Daly, and that's Martin Lawrence that he's battling with at this point in time, just trying to get his way through, and the 197 is ahead of the 171, and they're going to be trying to work their way down towards the likes of Verstappen and is that Tom Bryant behind them now, and Beale as well? It is, isn't it? It's the 64 and the 42 have ended up behind, so I'm not sure when that change of position has happened for Tom Bryant.
And certainly a mysterious one, possibly maybe a replay queued up somewhere, but if not, we'll have to see if we can figure out what happened. But Tom Bryant there certainly slipping down a few places as we ping back here to a replay. Tom Bryant side by side with, I believe, Matthew Kingston-Lee in the Turquoise pink Lamborghini. A little bit of door rubbing, a little bit of door banging, kind of equally shared out there. Nothing too major that seems to have maybe dropped in a few places, but possibly something that our TV cameras haven't picked up at this present time. But going back to your point, Ryan, of the hard fair racing, it's always good to see, stewards being a little bit lenient in certain scenarios like Monza Turn 1. Contact is normally inevitable, providing it's not, a massive thud in the rear or a malicious takeout going into Turn 1. We saw Nicholas Nordquist fire himself off into the right-hand side wall going up to the approach, but keeping it very clean, missed the whole field somehow as he jumped across the chicane. So great to see stewards, not giving out time penalties, especially at this point with these guys taking their early pit stops. The last thing you want is a time penalty to serve at the end of the race. It can drop you a good few positions, especially if you're running in very close proximity like we see here. Nearly contact there into turn 1, looking from the back of Tom Bryant's Lamborghini back to the 64 Porsche as they continue the fight as they go around the Curva Grande down to the second chicane.
Nico Kumpu's been slowly reeling in Joe McCauley. The gap 9/10 of a second now between the two leaders, and it was averaging about 1.5 seconds. In fact, it's a bit lower than 9/10 of a second now. It's about 6/10 as we cross the line to start another lap. But for that Lamborghini, which is better on the brakes around here, the one problem is it's going to be getting close enough to the back of that Ferrari to essentially be able to send it down the inside and overtake it. I mean, looking at the way the Ferrari pulls away, of course it pulls away a lot quicker from the Porsches than it does the Lamborghinis, but I mean, Nico Kumpu's going to have to be, at the very least, John, alongside that Ferrari coming out of a corner to be close enough to then have a look on the inside into the next corner, surely.
Yeah, he's going to have to be remotely under Joe McCauley's wing, like you say, if not at least alongside him. Even coming out of the corner, Joe McCauley is still going to, pull that advantage, unless Joe McCauley makes a slight mistake, which may allow Nico Kumpu, to capitalise on that. Even with, like you say, a poor run out of the corner. We saw it earlier with the Lamborghinis and the Porsches in Ascari. Lamborghini gets a poor exit, Porsche gets a run alongside, and then the Lamborghini just pulls away again. So super frustrating for a driver to be almost thrown together in the same championship as this multitude of cars, but it does provide for some very good, exciting racing at least, Ryan.
Definitely some exciting and interesting racing. We'll keep an eye on that lead battle. And looking a bit further down the order, we have Dvorak, who's half a second behind Bosselet at the moment. That's the battle for 11th place. Keeping in touch with what's going on with the championship standings, by the way. Caracas is 8th at the moment, and Benjamin Harmon is in 9th. There's a 4-second gap between the two of them, and as it stands at the moment, Caracas is champion, and we knew that already, as long as he would finish ahead of Harmon. But the big thing to ask is, what will happen in that 4-second gap? Because remember, there was 2 Lamborghinis occupying that space, and both of them have decided to go into the pit lane and get their stops out of the way. So the question will be, are the Porsches going to gain time on the Lamborghinis, or will the Lamborghinis lose out? And this is going to be the difference between the two cars here at the moment. But Benjamin Harman right now, he needs to start working in and cutting that gap down between himself and Caracas if he's going to have any hope of walking away with the championship in tow.
Certainly, probably Heilmann's trickiest drive that he's ever faced this season. We've seen Benjamin normally streaking away at the front in qualifying, and then he obviously converts that into a very high-placed finish as well. But with Caracas here, you know, equaling it and bettering him, and Nyring obviously not too far behind Heilmann. If Nyring catches the slipstream and catches, you know, Heilmann napping, even Nyring could be taking a place off Benjamin Harman, which would be, you know, detrimental for his championship. You see there the red and white Porsche just lurking in the background, close enough if Harman makes a mistake to capitalise on it. But equally so, Nyring could obviously also make a mistake, and maybe even Caracas could overdrive the car, maybe playing on his mind too much that he needs to get as far ahead of Harman as he can, starts pushing, maybe overly pushes, overly commits himself into a corner, runs a little bit too wide on track limits, picks up 3 warnings in a drive-through. As we flick to a great replay here, what are we looking at? We look at Harman through the Ascari, over the left curves, tilting it into the right, big arm blow on zip lock, and then jumps over the final anti-cut into the gravel, almost like 3-wheeling it looked like there, Ryan, from the helmet cam of Benjamin.
Has anyone told Benjamin Harman that it's not rallycross this weekend at Monza that's going on? It's supposed to be tarmac racing only here, and Benjamin Harman, who was 3.7 seconds behind Caracas, now 4.3. So he's lost out some time with that one. We're looking at the rear wing of Christian Romano right now, and just behind you can see Will Stevenson in the 108. Will Stevenson was one of the early pitters that we had, and right now down in 17th place overall, but one of the higher up drivers of those that have finished their mandatory pit stop. 0.3 of a second at the moment behind Christian Romano, but getting the slipstream here and gaining. Look how nice the slipstream is for Will Stevenson in this car. He's going to have a look on the outside of the first corner. It's going to turn into the inside line for the second part of the chicane. If he can keep it hooked on the inside line, nicely done. And is just a nose ahead, but now we have to come on to the third corner on the circuit. But is Will Stevenson just going to edge out? Did he get a better exit just to keep that car in front? He's going to have the inside line, but it's not like he'll need it, because he's just managed to slot in front of Romano before they get to the braking zone of the second chicane, and very nicely done by Will Stevenson.
Great to see Will Stevenson has really improved this season. You know, we've seen him kind of clambering up the order. Speaking of clambering up the order, we see here Hagstrom Vigershu on the back of Andy Boardman's been slowly chipping away, as I don't think he could get any closer to the back of Boardman's car before he darted out of the slipstream down to turn 1, side by side. Vigershu on the outside, Andy Boardman on the inside. Can we see a repeat of Will Stevenson here? Boardman almost backs out of it, doesn't even try an outbreak. Hagstrom Vigershu with the pace on that Lamborghini. So Hagstrom Vigershu here onto the bottom step of the podium for a P3, and can he keep now chipping away at Nico Kumpu, who is a fair margin up the road? But like we've seen before in this Challenge Cup, Brian, never say never to positions being gained.
Yeah, never say never in Hagstrom Vigershu. Oh, was that Andy Boardman having to take avoiding action, I think? I think he almost braked into the back of Vigershu. He does as he rejoins the circuit. We'll get a bit of a race replay of that. I thought I saw Boardman dive to the left-hand side just as we cut away there. Oh. And having to take that avoiding action and making sure that you rejoined behind the likes of Vigershu. But Vigershu up into third place and doing very well. Andy Boardman be a bit frustrated with himself there, but Christian Romano, he wants that place back from Will Stevenson, and Matthias Kajszek in the 427 has got onto the back of this pack, and he said, hey boys, I want to join in too.
The only problem you get here, Ryan, is when you do get into a tussle like Romano and Stevenson have found themselves in, constantly, you know, diving each other like we see here. Romano looking to the inside, it's going to be forcing Will Stevenson to look in his mirror and kind of think twice about maybe covering the inside next lap. Romano tucking right up behind the back of Stevenson as he goes a little bit defensive into Lesmo 1, tries to cover the inside, but for a while, like you say, Ryan, it's going to allow Kajszek to jump onto the back of these guys as Stevenson there runs a little bit wide at Lesmo 1, allows Romano to take a look into Lesmo 2, but again, the guys side by side, and Kaishek here at the back is just kind of biding his time. He's probably going to think, these guys are going to probably come together in a minute, and it's going to allow me to go through, but the last thing you want to do as Kaishek is get caught up in this misdemeanor, as Romano now going defensive on Kaishek. Kaishek around the outside into the Ascari chicane, jumps on the anti-cut curb, and they make contact and spin out, and that's given Will Stevenson that big breather now of no Romano and no Kaishek on the back of his tail. So Romano there getting going again, and Kaishek, I believe, has gone the opposite way into the gravel to try and loop his car back around, but terrible battle there. You know, two guys very fair, giving each other room, but the anti-cuts at the Ascari are not to be messed with, especially in the mid-engine platform.
Yeah, it just looks like Kaishek was a bit too far over on the right-hand side of the curve, touched that anti-cut, bounced off of it and into the back quarter area of Christian Romano, and, well, that's all she wrote. It's going to be so frustrating for Romano, because now he's going to go make up a load of time and places that, you know, he's going to feel quite hard done by. Kaishek will... I mean, he might get a penalty on top of that as well. The stewards will look into it. Kaishek, of course, didn't gain anything out of it. He's lost out massively, but Romano will still want some compensation for what's happened to him. So down to the stewards, I guess, to have a little look into that one. I think it is a pretty straightforward decision, but it depends on what their verdict is as to what kind of penalty they decide to give Kaishek, I guess. It could range from a warning to, I don't know, maybe 5 or 15 seconds. It's down to them, I guess, to decide.
Certainly halfway through the race, obviously you've already had your strategy planned out in your head. You've pitted early, you've tried to, you know, plough through the clean air that you get given as a result of doing so, and then this is the risky run that we've seen previously, Ryan, is you do risk getting caught up in these battles. I mean, Kaishek wasn't even involved with Romano and Stevenson from the start. He just kind of latched onto the back of them and thought, two positions to be had here, and tried to get involved, and yeah, it just ended in tears, unfortunately. It's just, you know, the way you win some and you lose some. As we ride on board here, Martin Lawrence looking at the back of Romano's Lamborghini. I see the speed difference here. You know, equal corner exits out of Ascari, but the Lamborghini, even with the Porsche in the slipstream, is just pulling away down to the final turn. Just impossible to get even alongside into the final turn. You know, normally a good passing place at Monza, Ryan, but they just can't get alongside each other.
Oh, but Romano, that's very wide coming through the Alboreto corner. Probably just outbraked himself there, and do we consider that track extending? Probably, to some degree, but Romano will go back past Martin Lawrence. And I was about to say that for the Porsche drivers, the GT3 car gets some grief for, you know, not being very quick in a straight line, and it being pretty much its Achilles heel, and the grace that the Porsche Cup drivers had, which was that the old Porsche Cup was very quick in a straight line. In fact, quicker than the GT3 car, but they don't really have that to boast about anymore with the new Cup car, so unfortunately, it's that problem you have, isn't it, when you trade off that speed, that straight line speed, for more downforce in the corners. You can't have both when it comes to these cars, and well, one path has been decided over the other, and when it comes to this car, very much still in the camp of straight line speed compared to the old Porsche Cup car, and Joe McCauley leads the way. You can just see here the speedometer just keeps climbing and climbing and climbing and climbing. Into 7th gear we go, and it's got a 1.9 second gap over Nico Kumpu at the moment as he comes into the second chicane.
Yeah, Joe McCauley driven an absolutely stellar race here in the Ferrari so far. Just coming up to the halfway mark, 31 minutes to go. And Nico Kumpu still can't get near the back of it, Ryan. You know, he's lurking in every camera shot we see. See the Ferrari go around Lesmo 2, the Lamborghini following straight after. But it just can't get close enough to make that move, like we said.
I think the one thing Nico Kumpu is probably hoping for right now is if he can conserve his tyres, and if Joe McCauley has to run through the best of his rubber to keep that Ferrari going as well as it does. I mean, we saw this at Imola, didn't we? That in the second phase of the race, Joe McCauley's car was just not handling the circuit that well, and it was a circuit that the Ferrari was doing much better at than we had seen it previously. But you know, around here at Monza, I mean, the tyres are probably going to get a lot less worn than they were at Imola, but I wouldn't put it past Nico Kumpu to maybe just be thinking about the long game. Back off from Joe McCauley a bit, don't sit in the dirty air that comes out from the back of that car, and just see if you can preserve some tyres for the last 15 minutes of the race, 10-15 minutes of the race, where maybe that Ferrari has gone through the best of its rubber and you can start to make some proper inroads and maybe a real chance of getting past it before the end.
So you really need, Ryan, is that little bit of extra tyre that your opponent doesn't have from, you know, you driving very conservatively. We've seen, like you say, Nico Kumpu be very fair on his tyres throughout the whole season. You know, typically quite a smooth driver on the wheel. Never really see him out of shape too much, as we watched Joe McCauley's steering wheel movements there briefly coming out of Parabolica in fifth gear, trying to short shift to, you know, reduce the wheel spin and reduce the oversteer that car does generate, to maybe try and preserve his rear tyres. Obviously, rear tyres are going to be crucial at launching himself out of these corners. As we flick back to the pit lane here, we see Christian Lindgren in the number 33 Porsche coming in to make his mandatory pit stop. Obviously, mandatory pit stop in the Monday challenge is 1 litre of fuel, and off you go again. No need to change tyres, no need to fuel more than 1 litre. So, you know, not a lot of strategy here. Normally the strategy has been stick with the same set of tyres, drop the 1 litre in and keep going. You know, the minimal amount of time you can spend in the lane, the better. And, you know, this could even be won in the pit lane, Ryan. You know, if Joe McCauley has a particularly bad stop, and speaking of bad stops there, I've just noticed Christian Lindgren has picked up a stop go 30. So really not what you want to see after making your mandatory stop down the lane, possibly way too late on the pit lane. So it's very easy at Monza to miss the pit line. It's almost similar to Imola. It creeps up a lot sooner than you think, and it's very easy to forget to smash the pit limiter on and slow down. As speaking of slowing down, we see Jacob Boswell and Wolf Matuszka braking for the final turn. Then we're going to see probably the Ferrari get quite close to the back of Boswell going down to turn 1 as Wolf Matuszka peels off into the pit lane to make his mandatory stop. So we're seeing these guys typically run half a race and then they start diving into their droves. You either pit, it seems, right at the start of the race. You either pit slap bang in the middle of the race, or you eke it out and you pit at the end of the race, or like some drivers did a couple of weeks ago, not pit at all, Ryan.
Yeah, we did see an interesting strategy out at Imola. Not too sure how well it worked for them though. But Wolf Matuszka's in the pit lane, and I've just seen that Tom Bryant is back in the pit lane, and that doesn't sound right because he's already served his mandatory pit stop. So I'd rather think that for the 42, that's probably going to be curtained down on their race. Although, no, they have got going again. So Tom Bryant is going to go back out there and try and see the race to its end. Wolf Matuszka, though, has been parked for a very long time, and I wonder if that 25 is taking tyres.
It'll be a very interesting call to make if he is taking tyres, Ryan. Obviously, tyres in ACC, along with that little splash of fuel, would take you to a 30-second stop in the box, plus obviously in time and out time to and from the pit speed limiter line. So, not sure if there's too much to gain here at Monza by taking tyres. It's not a particularly, you know, twisty track. It's not super harsh on the tyres like, you know, like the turns of Hungaroring were, for example. So I'm not really sure what Wolf is doing there, as we see him slip down and down the order there into P20 and even further as he does get going.
He's a lap
just
down
crossing
now.
The start-finish line. But yeah, lap down on the leaders. So very strange strategy from Wolf there, Ryan.
1 minute 48 was his pit stop time. That sounds like damage repair to me. That is a lot longer than what a tyre change would be. We've seen, Tom Bryant came in to repair damage, and he did a 1 minute 43 from pit in to pit out. So Wolf Matuszka's obviously had some trouble in the barrier, and that explains why he's been in the pit lane for so long. So that's very, very unfortunate for Wolf Matuszka. He was running very, very well, up in 6th place in fact. So he'll be bit more than frustrated, I feel, and well, just to add insult to injury, the car that was 1 second behind him on track is now just a couple seconds behind him on track, but closer to putting him a lap down than overtaking him, because they're already ahead of him. So unfortunate for Wolf, but you know, it hasn't been a great season for him, and I'm sure he'll come back next season. He'll come back a bit stronger and try and maybe choose a bit more of a competitive car. But either way, it has been very, very nice to at least see 2 Ferraris out here on track, and one of them here today doing a fantastic job, 2.5 seconds up the road.
Joe McCauley putting on a superb show with the lead from Nico Kumpu in the Lamborghini, about 2.5 seconds down last time by a timing gate. So Nico is still within that kind of range of, if Joe does make a mistake, he is kind of there to capitalise on it. And you know, speaking of being in the zone, we watch here for the past lap, Klaus Nyring and Benjamin Heilmann did say Nyring could be the curveball here, and it does seem to be this hassling the back of Heilmann, kind of thinking I could be the curveball in this championship, as he gets a big armful of opposite lock coming out of the final turn, wrestling it in third gear. It's so easy to get oversteer in the Porsche. It's got a very, very peaky engine, almost creeps up on you, the power band. It can really catch you out in, you know, the slower speed corners and these weird medium speed corners, as Heilmann there drives himself a little bit too deep into turn 1 by the looks of it, and nearly allows Nyring to get alongside for the run through Curva Grande down to the second chicane. As we look back here from Benjamin Heilmann's rear wing, Klaus Nyring is going to have the slipstream in towards the second chicane. Doesn't look close enough to make a move, possibly darts out, says, I'm still here, Benjamin, don't forget about me. As they close up on the brakes through the left, through the right, into Lesmo 1 and 2. Not close enough to make a move into here, but certainly so, these guys could be battling to the end run. This looks like maybe could be a decider on Heilmann's championship outcome here.
Definitely could be. At the moment, he knows that he's not winning the championship with Caracas already up the road, but Klaus Nyring getting ahead of him could make that even worse. And that's not something that Benjamin Heilmann would want, but there's not much he can do right now. 6.5 seconds.
Joe McCauley, sorry Ryan to cut in there. Joe McCauley through the Ascari, looks like he's made a mistake. Jumps over the left curb, runs wide through the gravel, bounces and fires himself to driver's right, and then slides to driver's left. So horrible moment there for Joe McCauley. Yes, of course, wait for Nico Kumpu to come through before whipping a U-turn. I believe that's even Hagstrom Victory there, possibly, and Andy Boardman and Pitchett coming through, and then Wolf Machuska in the back. So really horrible luck there for Joe McCauley. Just ran that bit wide and hit the bounce in the gravel, and it's just fired him into the wall. You can see there, even from our TV cams, he's got a lot of front end damage, and you know, I think that's Jake Boswell possibly behind for P6, looking to even take a position off him.
Well, Joe McCauley's been driving a perfect race so far, and that's the first time that things have gone wrong tonight, and they've gone wrong in a big way. That promotes Nico Kumpu up into the lead, Hagstrom Vigascu into second, and then Andy Boardman into third. Meanwhile, Benjamin Heilmann still under pressure from Klaus Nyring at the moment. 3.5 tenths between these two. It's a lot less than that now, as Klaus Nyring goes to the outside line, coming here towards to the second chicane. Oh, a little bit of a bump on the back of Benjamin Heilmann's car, and Klaus Nyring will have to forfeit the move on that one and not try and take that, although I'm sure Benjamin Heilmann will be too happy about a little bit of damage he's probably got on his diffuser right now. He'll remain in 8th place for the moment, but Klaus Nyring definitely has the pace over Heilmann at this stage in the race, and Heilmann, like I said before, just not able to make any inroads to that 6.5 second gap to Caracas up the road.
Jake Boswell there hitting the anti-cut quite hard, sending the rear of that Lamborghini up in the air, nearly pulling a Joe McCauley as it came back down. So right on board here, tips it to the right, goes to flick it over the left, catches a bit too much inside curve, unsettles the car, fires himself through the gravel, but luckily not as far into the wall as Joe McCauley went. So Boswell kind of shakes it off, gets back underway, but that does allow Grantas Caracas to make up more ground on Jake Boswell. And obviously Caracas is going to be wanting as many points as he can salvage from this race as we look at Ola Pitchik here on the back of Andy Boardman into the first chicane. Ola going to be wanting to get a very smooth exit, trying to slipstream Andy Boardman's Lamborghini up into the second chicane. Seen Boardman catch himself out a little bit late on the brakes before, so possibly going to be having that playing in the back of his mind that he, nearly ran one of the cars off the road that he was fighting with. So all eyes to his mirrors as Pitchik there pulls up very harshly on the brakes, nearly running into the back of Andy Boardman there. If you're not careful, if you're not used to following a car, Ryan, in a slipstream, that extra speed that it gives you with the car ahead punching a hole in the air, it can really catch you out on where you think you need to brake. You think my normal braking point is, 150 meters into turn one. Suddenly you're barreling in there with, 5 to 10 kph more than you should have, and you hit brake at the 150 and you just don't stop, whereas your opponent ahead does. And, it could be really, really detrimental.
Oh.
And again, speaking of detrimental, Joe McCauley with a stop-go 30, looks like possibly the same as Christian Lindgren of speeding in the pit lane. That did pop up when he did cross pit out. So Joe McCauley gone from absolute hero to zero. This race has really gone downhill for him in this latter half.
Check that the Ferrari speed limiter isn't quicker than everyone else's in first gear as well. But, such a shame for Joe McCauley. I mean, the incident was bad enough, the damage that he had on the car, but now to come in, maybe get it repaired and, come back out onto the track, that stop and go 30 has it's really put a dampener on that race now, and he's probably going to go join Wolf Matuszka near the back of the grid in the I guess the no fun club, do we call it? But yeah, not great for Joe McCauley, and a race that will probably just go down as could have been for the Ferrari here this season, and unfortunately does not look like we are going to get a Ferrari on the top step of the podium, or on the podium at all, unless there's an absolute miracle. The sad pasta club, as our producer has just said.
The Ferrari fan club certainly not going to be happy with being called
is the Lamborghini the happy pasta club? Is that what we're going with? Are we two sides of the same coin?
I mean, the Lamborghini could almost be the angry pasta club. Looking at the front end of that Lamborghini, it does look very menacing in its stance with the triangulated lines and the very jagged edges. So maybe we could start various clubs of foods around the world, like the Porsche could be the Frankfurter Club.
We'll leave everyone at home to decide on that. We're going to start naming clubs after manufacturers, but the stewarding team have just told me that they're actually getting pretty bored this race. John, I've seen that head steward Connor Morgan has just told me that they're not having too much to do out there today, and I suppose it's a very good day in the office for the stewards, isn't it? When the biggest things that they have to look at are minor taps and incidents that in the end don't really mean anything, and just give it a racing incident and on your way. But a very good day for the stewards indeed. Not a great day for some of the drivers out here, and well,
curse of the commentator strikes again.
Curse of the commentator strikes again. And we'll get a little bit of a race replay. This is Christopher Verstappen at the moment, and coming back on the inside of the 340, and unfortunate for Christopher Verstappen, but I think that's going to be a penalty coming their way. But like I said, we'll leave it to the stewards. But Dvorak probably not too happy with that incident at all.
I wonder if all the stewards around are going to be fighting over reviewing this one incident between them all tonight. I'm sure
the 8 of them will manage to fight
Judging
someone.
by previous races, I'm guessing they turned up with a big stack of paper ready to start scrolling down turn 1, turn 2 incidents and turn 3 incidents, but they've probably not used any of it. I don't think they have at all. It's been very, very quiet next door in the stewards' room. Feet up on the table, relaxing hands on heads, chairs tilted backwards. So very easy finale, let's just say, for our great stewards. And shout out to them because they've given up their free time to live steward the Pro Split at RCI events. It is much, much appreciated from us and all of the drivers on the grid today.
Yeah, we do like to see the clean races, and well, if we can keep the clean races up, maybe we won't need a stewarding team around at all. But I think we're a long, long way away from that happening. But what we're not a long, long way away from having happen is Kajsek and Romano getting into a scrap, because they are right next to each other again. And here we go. Gonna be able to see if we can have a little bit of a round 2 for this one, because if you remember the first time that these two went at it, they went into Ascari and Kajsek hit the curb, bumped into the back of Romano. They both went spinning and lost some time. So Kajsek now, on the second go round, is going to have to be a bit more careful, I'd imagine, John.
Yeah, not going to want to be having a repeat of last time's incident. I'm not sure if the stewards have reviewed this one yet between the 47. They have, I believe, indeed. So
Racing
both cars
incident.
been deemed at fault. Yeah, racing incident, as they nearly make a mirror copy of last time, going into the Ascari, getting very close between them. There we go, the 47 running a little bit wide, tucking back into the slipstream of Romano, heading down towards the final corner here. We see what that slipstream does to these Lamborghinis. It's a massive toe off the back of Romano's car, down the inside into the more favoured part of the Parabolica. And Romano there, looks like he's coming back almost at Kajsek there, heading into the main straight, past the pit entry there. Neither of them, needing to pit anymore. They've both cleared their mandatory pit stop. And we're going to see Romano maybe make a move in the toe here down towards turn 1. Although Romano's car not looking as fast as Kajsek's car did in the slipstream. Kajsek going obviously defensive on the inside. Doesn't allow Romano to take that, inside line into the second part of the chicane. And they both come out in the same order they went in. But again, long run from turn 1 through the Curva Grande down to the second chicane. Romano really needs to try and focus on tucking that car right up behind the white 47 of Kajsek and into the second chicane. Romano there looking a little bit towards the inside, trying to maybe trail break his way up the inside to the apex, but not paying off there, as Kajsek does pull out a little bit of a gap here into Lesmo 1. And again, Romano running very wide in Lesmo 1, and Kajsek doing the same on exit. Want to be very careful there not to pick up a track limits warning. It's all too easy as Lesmo 2, they both keep it clean, and I don't think this battle will be over yet. But flicking back forwards, we see Nyring has finally made a move on Heilmann down the main straight into turn 1. Done it even before the braking zone has happened, but Nyring with a big armful of opposite lock coming out, maybe too eager to get on the power of the Porsche's tyres. Obviously not at their most healthiest state with 13 minutes to go, as we see a race replay here from Klaus Nyring's car. Watch his steering wheel here. He comes out, he jumps on the power very eagerly, and big armful of opposite lock, did very well to save it there. And Heilmann, not allowing him to get through either. So easy to get sideways in the Porsche and just lose that little bit of ground and that little bit of legs that you had coming out of the corner suddenly goes the other way, and your opponent's sailing past you before you even know it.
Well, 47 minutes into the race, John, we have our first penalty. And it's 15 seconds for Christopher Verstappen. I think that was one that we probably saw coming. But, 15-second penalty for the contact that he had with Dvorak. So 15-second penalty added on to Verstappen's time come the end of the race. Ollie Pitchik, in the meantime, still battling with Andy Boardman, and this is for the final step of the podium here as it stands. And just looking down the order here, we have Lamborghinis in the top 5, then it's followed by 4 Porsches, then it's a train of Lamborghinis again that we have throughout the rest of the field. And the one thing about the Porsches so far in this race, John, is that they've done very, very well at working their way up the field, should we say, between all of the cars. But the problem is, most of them still need to serve their mandatory pit stop. So you think the likes of Dubiel and Ostrich and Stevenson are probably going to jump up ahead of them. So these places at the moment for the likes of Caracas, Nyring and Heilmann, Bosselet included as well in that, they're not really that reflective of what they're going to be looking at come the end of the race.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a false impression, like you say, Ryan. Obviously, these guys are yet to make their pit stops, and obviously, with the pit stops being around about 40 to 45 seconds from pit in to pit out on a clean stop, it's if you haven't got that gap between you and your rivals, especially coming out of the Monza pit lane, you know, it's right towards the end of the straight, so your opponent's going to be blasting down, you know, top end of their gearing, and you're only going to be coming out at 48 kph, cycling up through the box. As we see here, Ola Pitchik fires up the inside of Andy Boardman, and contact between the two into, I believe that's a Scari by the looks of it, if my memory serves me right. Pitchik there trying to spin the car around, but again the anti-cut sausage helicam there blocked a little bit by the tree. The anti-cuts there, 3 of them on the inside, launching Pitchik's car into the quarter of Andy Boardman, and 2 of them there just kind of not coming out too well, although no positions lost by the looks of it, but they have lost a fair bit of ground to that man behind, Jake Boswell, in the 47. He's been running a very quiet race, I would say, Boswell. We've not seen him getting involved too much with each other, you know, other drivers, but he's kind of found himself up in P5, and he sees the back of the 2 cars ahead, and he thinks, I'm not getting involved, I'm just going to pit. So Boswell peels in to take the mandatory pit stop of 1 litre of fuel before coming back out, hopefully jump on the pit speed limiter in time. But Pitchik, you know, a little bit further back from Andy Boardman now. He's probably going to have routed himself a little bit with that move. Obviously the stewards are going to have to look at another incident, so 8 of them are going to start fighting over one incident next door. And yeah, we're going to have to see the outcome of this, but obviously with these 2 guys still to serve their pit stops, if you get a 5 to 10 second penalty, it's going to be tacked onto your mandatory stop, so it's going to shuffle you even further down the field than you think.
Jake Boswell coming into the pit lane gives us a fantastic opportunity to see exactly where Pitchik and Boardman are going to come out, because he was just a couple of seconds behind them when he dived into the pit lane, and you can see with Jake Boswell coming out here, once he crosses over the first sector timing line, we'll see exactly, well actually when some of the other drivers cross the first sector timing line, we'll see exactly where he ends up in respect to them, but I think it's going to be that he's behind the likes of Dubiel, Ostrich, and no, he's ahead of Stevenson, so he's behind Dubiel and Ostrich. So Dubiel and Ostrich at the moment are technically 3rd and 4th overall, because they're going to be way ahead of the likes of Andy Boardman and Ole Pitchik. So Boardman and Pitchik at the moment fighting over 3rd and 4th. It's actually going to be them fighting over probably 5th place by the looks of it.
Yeah, certainly so, Ryan. And just a note here, we see Benjamin Heilmann has managed to find his way back ahead of Klaus Neiring, and now Neiring is coming under fire from our French driver Nicolas Bosselet there in the grey and blue car, just behind in between him, and Joe Crawley in the Ferrari. So again, another change of position.
A lap down.
Yeah, Joe McCauley sadly out of contention. Neiring there peels off to drivers right into the pit lane to get his mandatory stop done. So these guys,
look at this.
It's disgusting.
This isn't even fair.
Macaulay is a lap down, and he thinks, I'm coming past you, Mr. Bosselet. I'm going to disappear, probably outbrake himself by the looks of it. So ends up giving the position back. But again, if Macaulay got through the chicane, made his braking zone, he probably would have disappeared, and he wouldn't have even bothered Nicolas Bosselet in the Porsche.
You know, it's not just that that car has an extra gear. It's almost like it's got DRS and KERS on it for good measure.
Almost got a secret kind of warp speed overdrive gear that just allows it to slingshot past anything in the game that it even gets near. As Hagstrom Vigershu here has also served, I believe, his mandatory pit stop, come out just behind Adam Dubiel. So Adam Dubiel may be having a very good race indeed. We've not seen a lot of him, again, very similar to Jake Boswell. Not really been involved in too much, just kind of been pacing around at his own rate, you know, trying to pound in those lap times in that clean air. So Adam Dubiel is going to be certainly one to watch, I think, once these top 5 cycle through their stops.
Yeah, we will wait for them to cycle through their stops. 5 minutes and 30 seconds remaining for the top 5 to get those pit stops in. Nico Kumpu at the moment leading the way and looking pretty good whilst doing it as well. Massive lead over the likes of Andy Boardman. Vigerscu has come into the pit lane and with his stop done and back out on track. He's behind Dubiel but ahead of Ostrich. So as it stands, I think Hagstrom Vigerscu is going to be looking at 2nd place in this race at the moment. We'll have to see exactly what happens with Andy Boardman, but I believe he's going to come out around where the likes of Pitchik is, or that's where he should come out. So at the moment, Dubiel looks like he's on for provisional second, Hagstrom Viggershew provisional third, and Kumpu, unless Dubiel has found a lot of pace in that clean air that he's had, I think Nico Kumpu has probably got this one wrapped up. Just needs to remember to come in and serve that pit stop. Unlike Caracas and Benjamin Harlan did at Imola, which rather ended up quite embarrassing for both of them, to be honest. Caracas, remember, did try to serve the pit stop after the pit window closed, although it was pretty much in vain at that point.
Hindsight's certainly a wonderful thing, Ryan. It's almost kind of what if kind of plays here in the terms of Benjamin Harman. You know, what if he faked Caracas to a certain point, saw the pit timer was about to hit 0 and dived in at the last minute, made the stop, avoided the penalty, finished a lot higher than Caracas. He certainly wouldn't be in this position that he's in now, and he wouldn't be under the pressure that he is now, surely.
Well, let's put it this way. If Benjamin Harlan takes the win at Imola and Caracas finishes where he did, Benjamin Harlan probably has a 30-point lead over Caracas coming into this race, and the fact that he's behind him by a couple of places is completely irrelevant. But that's not the situation we're in. The situation we're in is that Caracas is 2 points ahead of Harlan in the championship, and as it stands, he's going to stay ahead of him in the championship. And this battle is still resuming despite the pit stops. Obviously not fighting for third place this time though, fighting for 8th at the moment, and that will go up once the Porsches come in and serve their mandatory pit stops, because they'll come out behind these drivers. And Jake Boswell was a couple of seconds behind Andy Boardman on Ollie Pitchik. Now he's 5.2 behind, so Jake Boswell had quite a slow stop by the looks of it. Yeah, 45 seconds pit in to pit out compared to Pitchik and Boardman's 41.6 and 41.9.
There's certainly something that maybe happened for Jake Boswell there, possibly maybe too slow coming into the pit lane, possibly didn't jump on the speed limiter late enough, maybe misaligned his car in the pit box, had to get dragged back and forward. Seen that affect a few drivers in the championship this year so far, as Boardman here straight lining the first chicane. I believe I saw Pitchik's Lamborghini just ahead out of shot. There it is at the bottom of your screen, just going through now. So possibly these two coming together again. Nothing that we've seen a replay for at the moment, although maybe our broadcaster could potentially find something. But the gap has certainly opened up between these two, so something has definitely happened, whatever that may be, whether a little bit of shoulders out racing as we flick here into the Ascari. I believe this was the incident we saw a few laps ago.
Yeah, this was the first
Pitchik
one.
onto Boardman. That's obviously the first one there, and Machuska getting involved at the end there with Boardman. Didn't spot that initially on the first playthrough, but maybe our TV cams not caught that turn 1 incident, but definitely the gap has opened up between them. And
Pitchik's just received a 15-second time penalty for that incident, by the way. So that's going to be added on to the end of his race time. Kumpu is coming to the pit lane to serve their mandatory pit stop. Same for Caracas. And it's going to be the same for Benjamin Harman and Nicholas Bosselet, because they can't go back around and do another lap before the pit window ends. So that's all the cars back into the pit lane. This is Kumpu making his way out of the pit lane. Here comes Adam Dubiel, and Kumpu is going to be in front. The gap's going to be smaller, but it's not going to be small enough, I think, for Dubiel to really have a good chance. And in fact, he's outbraked himself a bit going into the first chicane. So we'll have to see what the gap is exactly. But Kumpu still leads. And, well, it could be another win for Nico Kumpu this season. Took his first win of the season out at Imola with the Porsches. Oh, and to add insult to injury to a man who hasn't been able to close down onto Grantis Caracas so far today, Benjamin Harman. He's going to end his season in sorrow. Stop and go 30 for speeding in the pit lane.
Was going to say, Ryan, he did look a little bit hot coming towards the camera we do have on the pit wall looking into the pit entrance. He just looked like he came in a little bit too fast, braking a little bit too hard for my liking. Got caught out obviously by how early that pit line does come up on you. Unfortunate for Heilman here. But as we look to the front, Nico Kumpu is your man that leads the race today. And almost, if you squint, you could pretend that we were 40 minutes later with Joe Macaulay leading, followed by Nico Kumpu. Unfortunately, that is not the case. Joe Macaulay is a lap
Rose-tinted
down.
glasses, John.
Rose-tinted glasses indeed are in full swing at the moment. I really wanted to see that Ferrari take top step for the podium, but unfortunately not. Nico Kumpu here, rounding the last turn with 1 minute to go on the clock. He will begin his final lap here, and we may even see Joe Macaulay kind of back off and let him go, just to kind of end his race a little bit earlier. But Adam DeVille is within earshot still, just over 2 seconds down the road, so not massive amounts away, as it could provide some interesting action as we head into the last lap. Nico Kumpu makes a slight mistake, DeVille is within that shot of taking another place of him as they round through the first chicane, all cleanly by the looks of it, into the Curva Grande here, heading up towards the second chicane. Joe Macaulay ahead, just out of shot in the Ferrari. So not slowing down yet to a lamb, so maybe Joe Macaulay wants to go that extra lap. I mean, if I was Joe Macaulay, I'd certainly be letting him go. As just seen out the window into the first chicane, a couple of drivers getting tangled up. Not sure if we've got a replay on that at all, but it appears to have been Jake Boswell and William Stevenson, I believe, in the blue tinted Lamborghinis. As we flick to a race replay here, heading down into turn one. Will Stevenson there outbraking himself massively behind Jake Boardman, tries to take evasive action. Jake Boswell not realizing there, obviously the Lamborghini to his inside turned in, clattering doors, and obviously no real harm done there towards the end. As the white flag waves, the clock has hit 0 as we head out of Ascari for the final time, down to the last corner, as Joe Macaulay is still ahead there. He's not giving up. He wants to go again, I think, Ryan.
Joe Macaulay wants to finish ahead of the leader on this occasion, but here we go then. Nico Kumpu, the man, came out here and he had to deliver. He has delivered. The final round of the season will go to Lamborghini, and it will go to Lamborghini in a 1-2-3. It's Kumpu for Dubiel, and Hagstrom Vigasque will round out the podium. And a fantastic result come the final round of the season. In fact, it's Lamborghini top 6 by the looks of it, with Pitchik coming across the line. Oh no, it will be top 5, in fact, because Caracas is going to come across the line, and Pitchik's penalty will actually put him behind. So Lamborghini top 5. Caracas will cross the line, and he will seal his championship over the likes of Benjamin Heilmann. It did all come down to the final race, not exactly the finale between the two competitors that we were looking for. Klaus Neiring will cross the road in 11th. Not sure where that will get him compared to Benjamin Heilmann for second place in the championship. We'll have to have a look post-investigations, but my word, for Nico Kumpu, had to follow Joe Macaulay throughout half this race, but then as soon as Joe Macaulay had an incident, put himself in the barrier, Kumpu was there to take it, and he just ran with it. 1.8 seconds over the likes of Adam Dubiel, and Nico Kumpu is a repeat winner this season in the Challenge Cup for Lamborghini.
Right aboard here with Wolf possibly waiting for the other Ferrari of Joe Macaulay to come up behind him, I believe there. Not far off each other on the radar by the looks of it. Benjamin Harmon, yeah, there we go. Joe Macaulay right behind Wolf Matuszka there for the ultimate photo finish here in Monza. Unfortunately, Joe Macaulay couldn't take the win, as he gives Wolf a little kiss of the rear end and manoeuvres him into the inside wall just as they cross the line for a little bit of a laugh. But wow, Ryan, what a season this has been. It's a combination I didn't think would work at the start, but it has provided some really exciting racing, if I do say so.
Yeah, it's been absolutely fantastic. And across 6 races, we've had 5 different winners. That tells you how competitive the season has been. Benjamin Heilmann, of course, winning round 1. Angel Inostroza won round 2. Then it was, I believe, Martin Lawrence, yes, that claimed victory in round 3 out of nowhere at the Hungaroring. Round 4 belonged to Nico Kumpu. It would have belonged to Caracas had he managed to do his mandatory pit stop. but instead it belonged to Kumpu, and then round 5, which was last week at the Nürburgring, that belonged to Jarzabowski in the Lamborghini. So it's 3 wins for Lamborghini, 3 wins for Porsche across the season in the end, splitting honours even, and we almost had 6 different winners, but my word, it could not have been more competitive. And I think Grantas Caracas, I might have to go looking through the archives to verify this one, John. I think Grantas Caracas is the first driver in RCI history to win a top split event without winning a race.
This goes back to the point I made at the start, Ryan, that ACC is all about consistency. You know, he may not have won a race this season, but he's certainly won, you know, placed high enough in previous 6 rounds to gain himself that Champion Cup.
Yeah, definitely so, and that consistency will will prove very, very worthy going into the next season, and it will definitely prove him well going into any other championships that he does here around RCI. Speaking of next season, the next Monday championship is around the corner, and it gets started soon. And where else would we be going for the next season? We're going back to the UK for a while. We had the British GT Championship last year when the British GT DLC came out, so we're going back to do something similar, but not exactly British GT. It's the British Masters, British manufacturers only, GT3 cars only. We don't have the GT4s out because we'd pretty much only be using the Ginetta, but we have British GT3 cars. We're using the old and the new spec cars as well, so if you want to rock the McLaren 650S, or if you want to rock the Jag, if you want to have the Aston V12, or if you're a real masochist, you can go for the old Bentley, which is apparently available for some reason. But pre-qualifying for that opens very, very soon. I believe sign-ups open tonight after this race. So if you want to get involved in some British Masters action at some of the UK's finest circuits, then do get yourself over to racerci.com, and you'll be able to sign up for the British Masters. And of course, that will be live streamed here on RCI TV when the first round gets underway in a couple of weeks' time. Speaking of other races that we're going to have on, though, for this week, we have the season finale on Thursday of the BMW M2 CS Cup. That's going to be out at Kyalami, the 5-round championship that's been going to all the IGTC circuits, and finishing the season off at Kyalami just like the IGTC season does. Then Friday we have round 2 of the GT Sprint Challenge. That's going to be at Barcelona. And of course, on Saturday, there's no Night Owl because it's the biggest race of the year for RCI. It's the 24 Hours of Spa as round 4 for the World Tour. And my word, will we have a stacked grid, and it's going to be very, very competitive as well. John, yeah, I know your team's competing in that race. I'm not competing in it, but I'm going to be commentating on it. And, well, there's a lot to look forward to this weekend.
Yeah, definitely going to be some great racing up and down all the splits, I feel, for the 24 this weekend. Super excited to jump back in the McLaren. I've not been racing a lot recently and been doing quite a bit of commentary, obviously, on the Mondays and here and there as well. So it's going to be good to get alongside Tom, Sebastian, myself, and Mark Whitford for OVRC in the silver split. If you do want to follow any of that, I will be streaming over on my Twitch page, those of you that do know me. Yeah, come and drop by, and yeah, let's have a laugh. Not looking forward to the skewed sleeping pattern that's going to appear. We've not yet worked out who's going to do the midnight to 6 run, so that's going to be the interesting one. I think it's going to be a case of drawing straws or numbers out of a hat or something. But yeah, super excited to get on the grid at Spa, and yeah, it's going to be a wonderful weekend of racing.
The great planning at OVRC, drawing straws out of a hat to decide who gets the worst stints. Absolutely love it. But yeah, plenty of action for the rest of this week. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday are the days to look out for. The Monday Championship will, of course, be back on RCI TV when that gets underway for the very first round of the season. And I am just going to quickly check my calendar to make sure I have the dates correct. It is the first round of the season for Alton Park is on May 23rd. So if you're looking to tune into the live stream, it'll be May 23rd at around 7:45 is when the qualifying session and the live stream should go live. So we look forward to seeing you there. But in the meantime, enjoy the rest of the racing this week and look forward to the 24-hour on the weekend. We'll see you soon.